As we continue to answer other questions in the list based on the words that we originally wrote, we can further narrow our choices. Selecting the future, for example, cuts the number of available story forms in half. Eventually, we'll have answered enough structural questions by bopping around from the character list to the plot list to the theme list and back again, answering the ones that are most important to us first, to give enough information to Dramatica's story engine that it can narrow things down to the one single story form structure that works with everything we have said so far. In actual practice, you may only answer a handful of structural questions, if they're really dramatically telling, before you arrive at a single story form, meaning that most of your storytelling is going to be matching up with structural points that the story engine predicted, not ones that you chose directly. When this happens, as an inspirationist writer, you have a choice. You can look at the story point you described and compare it to the structural choice Dramatica predicted. You know that the structural point is going to be sound, but it may not be at all what you wrote. If you want, you can conform your storytelling to what the structural point called for, and thereby refine your structure and make it tighter. Or you can determine that that particular story point is really not that structurally significant, and you're in love with your storytelling anyway, and decide to keep that storytelling just the way it is. Leave it in even though you know it's flawed, because no story has to be perfect, and you may never get the opportunity to use that particular really neat concept ever again if you don't use it here. After all, writing should be fun, and you should enjoy what you're doing, and if that means not having a perfect structure, well then more power to you. That's the nice thing about Dramatica. It doesn't force you to do anything. It just forces you to recognize when you're making a structural choice that isn't perfect. It doesn't force you to change your writing so that it becomes structurally perfect. As a final note on the query system window, there's lots of other lists you might want to explore as well, other than the 9 that appear on that home window. You might want to start, for example, with the Storytelling Complete list, which lists every single storytelling question in the Dramatica software all in one big list. So you can go through the entire thing and put a check mark by each one if you want by answering that question, in which case you have completely done your storytelling as far as you can. And then Story Forming Complete gives you the entire list of all the structural questions, so you're able to really scan down and find the ones that are most important to you when it comes to the structural phase.